Real Dads Lead.
Hello, all you fellow fathers out there. Welcome to another episode of Real Dads Lead. I'm your host, Dwayne Smith. Next to me is Mr. Matt Hamilton. As you know, we went and saw the movie After Death, and thought we'd just go over some of our thoughts after we've had a day to kind of mull over some of the some of the content, without giving away any spoilers. Just what we thought overall about the NDEs. The whole movie was pretty much about NDEs. Have you heard of NDEs before?
Near-death experiences.
Near-death experiences. Have you heard of those before?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Never in as much detail.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll show you just a little bit of a clip of before and after, our initial thoughts, and then we'll get into some more detail after that. Hey, it's Dwayne with Real Dads Lead. I'm getting ready to watch After Death with Matt and his boys, and I got my son Kyle here. This is my son Kyle.
Hey. Everything is so expensive.
This is Matt, you know.
Hey, Chevy gets it.
Corbin and Kyle.
Keeping prices down to earth, like on the most affordable EV.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know what much to expect. I'm sure we're going to experience things after death.
I
don't know. I'm very intrigued. It looks well done.
Okay, we just finished the movie After Death, and I'm just going to get a quick reaction on, quick thoughts on with Matt and his boys and Kyle. And we'll start with Corbin, so we didn't get him earlier.
It was kind of what I expected. The experience about After Death, but it wasn't filling in my mind. I wanted closure and satisfaction, but now thinking about it, it's not really one of those movies that can provide that because they don't have the information that they can give you. But it was a good movie, and I encouraged and challenged me to live more loving towards others and those around me, because one guy said, I don't remember who it was, but he was talking about how
We're not giving anything away. No spoilers.
Don't do it! Don't do it!
Thank you, though.
it was good.
We like it.
Okay.
I enjoyed the way that everyone came back saying they felt this overwhelming feeling of love. And I know for a lot of people we don't feel love and stuff like that, but just for me it was I want to feel that love, so why not give that love to people? And just it encouraged me to love more people.
I liked the movie. I liked the movie. I'm a person who likes stories, and so there's a lot of stories in this movie. It's kind of hard to speak without spoiling too many things.
Don't do it! Don't do it!
But I just say I enjoyed the movie and I would recommend it.
So, those were our initial thoughts, or little clips of them. I didn't actually give you all of the initial thoughts, but I wanted to, now that we've had a chance to mull over a little bit, some of the things that you thought over, or had a little bit more time to mull over, I guess, and things that popped up in your head. For me, it just reminded me, without giving out any spoilers, it just reminded me of some of the things in scripture that I had thought about before already. We're in Corinthians, it was 2 Corinthians, I think, when Paul experiences an out-of-body experience. So in this movie, they talk a lot about the near-death experiences, and pretty much everybody experienced some kind of out-of-body experience where they're outside the body and they are seeing things, including themselves. And in 2 Corinthians, Paul, but he knows somebody, or some people, most scholars think that it was actually him, experiencing a possible out-of-body experience. He was caught up into third heaven, and he was able to see or hear unexplainable things, or unspeakable things that there's in that in the movie. They had a few times where someone would talk about, I can't even, where there's no human words to describe what I experienced, whether it was colors or sounds or whatever. They just could not describe it in human terms.
Mhm.
And it's kind of similar to what Paul is saying
Yeah.
in that. Yeah, you want to just read that? That'll be.
Yeah, let me look it up here.
Cool. If you guys have seen the movie and you want to leave some comments in, that would be great. Tell me what you thought of the movie After Death.
Yeah. This movie is sure to draw both criticism and praise. Inevitably, and from within the Christian camp. So I'm definitely interested in people's comments. So this is 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 2 through 4. He says, I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. So he says, I know a man, as you mentioned, scholars disagree on whether Paul's being humble here and talking about himself or it's actually another person. But he says he was 14 years ago caught up to the third heaven. My understanding of third heaven here means you've got the heavens, which is the firmament, and then the second heavens would be space. And the third is heaven, the dwelling place of God, which he calls it paradise here in a minute. He says, whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know.
Mm-hmm. So he's experiencing something.
Right.
And
he's being actually taken to
mm-hmm.
the third heaven or paradise. Mm-hmm. It's not just a vision. It's not a dream.
Right. He's
caught up to the third heaven.
Mm-hmm.
He's unsure of whether it was in his body or out of his body.
Yeah.
And your point is simply he's recognizing the possibility that there is a distinction between your soul and your body, or your
mm-hmm.
spirit and your body, and they can be separated.
Right.
And he's acknowledging that it's possible that I had this outer body experience where the Lord just caught up my spirit.
Right.
That's what you're thinking is here, right? So he says, whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. And I know that this man was caught up into paradise. So there's the synonym for third heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he repeats himself, interesting. Whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. And he heard things that cannot be told, which man may not utter.
Mm-hmm.
So the emphasis here it doesn't seem, at least in the translation, on there's no language for it, but
mm-hmm.
there's no permission
okay.
to speak it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I kind of thought more or less that couldn't describe it. It was like indescribable, but yeah, that sounds like more or less that it was.
And it could be both.
Not allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was something that was in there in the testimony. So if you haven't seen the movie, first of all, it's not a fiction type story. It is a documentary model. Did you feel at all like, because sometimes you can watch I can watch, you probably can't because you are the type of person you are. Watch a documentary and get bored.
You're saying you get bored?
I can get bored watching some documentaries.
I typically enjoy documentaries, yeah.
But this wasn't one of those. I mean, I was engaged. The way they told the stories and the way they did a good job of keeping me engaged overall. So, I mean, that's points for that. And I thought some of the cinematography, the landscapes, the colors, the different things that they were bringing in were engaging, beautiful, and added to the, I don't know, mystery.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah, I think that's in the wonder.
Yeah, in the wonder. So they did a pretty good job doing that. I think in the comments afterwards, you had said that the way they chopped up the stories, you would have liked to have one cohesive type thing, but they would skip. So they would start with someone's story and then come back to it later.
I think that the objective was to say they're trying to show that each of these stories share similar elements. There's a consistency, I think that was part of the point.
Right.
But it did at times for me make it a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't even know if difficult is the word as much as like, and this might just be a personality thing, but just kind of irritated.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I want to know the end of this story. Why do we keep leaving it kind of thing? But
right. And they did a pretty good job in the beginning of letting you know who's talking,
Mhm.
like who they are, and
Yeah.
and they would, even though they kept coming back to them, they would still put that out there. There was probably a quarter way through they stopped doing that, but
Yeah.
um,
And they chose people who are reputable people, in society.
yeah.
It wasn't like some,
They've all written books and they've all had
they're doctors themselves,
Yeah.
or, pilots, or, whatever, they're educated people that
Mhm.
you typically wouldn't think, oh, they're out to deceive me.
right. And a lot of them had no. I mean, there was a lot of one of the other. So let's just talk about some of the similarities. So one was that outer body experience,
Mhm.
like that was pretty consistent throughout.
Mhm. Within moments or instantaneously.
Yeah.
They're there. Like there was no like I'm dying. It was like there was no sense of being dead. It was just a sense of being more alive, they said.
Yeah. And then another similarity was that they would basically have either light or warmth or peace or love. I think love was one of the
an overwhelming feeling of unconditional love.
Yeah. So if that was
Being
consistent,
the object of it from God.
Right. If that was a pretty consistent. Let's talk a little bit about that part as far as love in our experience with. What do you feel unconditional love, overwhelming love would be like? I mean, is there anything?
I think it would be overwhelming.
Yeah,
that's about as much as I got. No, I think what do you mean? Exactly?
It's interesting that whether they were able to or did in the movie equate it to God or not, that was their sense. And there were some people who, did equate that. That's what God is, love. And then scripturally, that's what it says. God is love. And there's lots of different verses. I think I was thinking about 1 John 4.
Do you want to sing the song?
Yeah, I'll butcher it. I had to do my little beloved 1 John 4, 7, and 8.
Yeah,
do that.
That's the one.
That's what you learn in
kids' church,
yeah. Bible, vacation Bible school or whatever.
Yeah. So God is love, and we love God
love.
because He first loved us.
Yeah, and in the beginning, God so loved the world that He gave His only Son to forever, for whoever believes in Him should not perish but have eternal life. And just to be able to love someone that much, it's indescribable. I do think that that love is what you're saying is the love that we feel that those people felt that God was giving them, different than the feeling of love that we have for someone.
Yes.
Okay. Because I know I've felt love towards like my kids, especially. I mean, my biggest things with my kids has been the feeling of love when they're going into the hospital or on the operating table or going under anesthesia, and there's this overwhelming, like, man, I'm hoping and praying that everything's all right because I love this kid so much. I don't want anything bad to happen to them.
Yeah.
That's just those things overwhelm me. They just wash over me. It's like I can't imagine God loving me more than I'm loving this kid right now.
Yeah.
And what that would feel like.
Right. And it's just a glimpse. I mean, it's truly a glimpse. Being image bearers, any true love that we have for another person or thing is a reflection of His love. But it's a mere shadow, of what the fullness of His love actually looks like.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing to think like we love and we can love well, but because we get distracted, we don't love well consistently, or like 24/7, but God's love is undistracted, so He is every moment, in eternity, He is loving at full capacity, you and I. And that's an incredible thought to begin with, But I think it's also interesting. I mean, we're commanded, Jesus says before he goes to the cross, he says to his disciples, and then they're to pass it on as they make disciples, to love one another as I have loved you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tall order.
Right.
So you were talking about God's love being undistracted. He's saying, I want you to love others as I have loved you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the constant standard that we're pursuing, and it will be achieved when we get there.
Yeah.
The love that we have for others will be undistracted and full. Even the love that you have, for your child, it's like it can be distracted, whatever. And that was another apparent theme, was when they got there. I don't think this is a spoiler. Other people that they encountered, they could see it in their eyes and just feel it in their presence, this unconditional love from them as well. It's like the fulfillment of that command that Jesus gives to us.
Yeah. And this was not overall like an overly Christian movie. I mean, there was a lot of skeptics that turned to like belief, not necessarily belief in Jesus, all of them, but belief in something that there is.
These would be like scientists who are helping put this film together, kind of thing.
Yeah. And there were a lot of people who, not all the people experienced, just that overwhelming feeling of love either. There was some that felt the other.
Right. Yeah, and that's not a spoiler. I think it shows it in the preview.
Yeah.
Right. Some of them go to a hellish type place, and they experience that pain. It's pretty intense.
Yeah. Yeah. But even in those things, it was interesting because I think when anybody goes through pain or heartache, or unless they are totally defiant against God, most of them are all call out to God. And even in these NDE experiences, that was evident. When people are going through hard times, you generally it's a really good time to start, sharing Jesus, because they are open to it.
There's something intuitive. And that intuition, I think, is kind of like, it's revealed, or it comes to the surface when we're in our pain moments.
Right, exactly. So yeah, and I thought that was good. I was refreshed to see that. I was like, okay, so this is not all about this, like, trying to convince people that everyone's going to heaven and everyone's going to feel this. No, there's also an alternative. But yeah, I enjoyed it, the movie, a lot, and I think I would recommend it for people to see. I actually went into the movie kind of skeptical, because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it.
What were your concerns?
I just didn't. Anything that is those anecdotal type stories, I am not. Is it real? Is it a dream?
So you
is it
fear
whatever?
that it would lack evidence.
But and that was not the case. They did a lot of study, and they brought a lot of scientific study to what they were experiencing. And me, as a science background, I think that gave credence to the movie for me.
So you appreciated that they had doctors who themselves had not had NDEs, but had encountered people who had, or who were in the room, for example. When they were experiencing it.
Or just the going through the scientific method. I mean, they were researching. They're connecting all this stuff. They're gathering information,
considering different hypotheses.
I just thought that was, it's too much to be coincidence. So I just thought, just like I am skeptical of this, UFO stuff that's going on.
You don't think aliens are real?
I don't know. I don't know if we want to get into that in this video. It'll be another video.
I don't think we need to do one on that.
But I just I'm skeptical because there's not enough evidence, scientific evidence, And although I know there has to be some kind of faith, and it's not, everything is not all about science, but sometimes I struggle with that. But this movie put a light on that for me, because I had not really heard much of the NDE stuff that I would felt comfortable saying, yeah, this is what everybody experiences or anything like that.
So what are your thoughts on, I mentioned yesterday in our little quick reaction to the film, the interest in talking about it from a more religious perspective. And I specifically meant whether, I guess you already said just now that it's not an overly Christian film. It's not like, it's just not overly Christian. Did you get the impression from the movie that people were going to heaven who were not believers? There's debate about this already online. Like this really isn't a spoiler. I think that whoever sees it, you're gonna have to wrestle through this question a little bit. And I think a lot of it depends on how you interpret what was said.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the way I got it was, the way I took it was more of glimpses of there, or getting taken to, the foot of the door, or not actually being there necessarily, but getting a taste. And it did seem like, I don't know, like there was some people who, were non-believers, definitely non-believers, and they were given a glimpse, I thought. And interestingly, it came to me a few times, like, is that mean that everybody gets a second chance, or does that mean everybody has a, even those who are having dark thoughts, they were like calling out to God and God came, type thing. And I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what I think about it. I'm still wrestling with it, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think it's worth wrestling through. I really do. I think we talked about this, my boys and I, yesterday as well. And there is, you kind of alluded to it already, someone who's in the dark spot and in a hellish environment at first, and then they end up standing before the Lord. Is that communicating that, well, at one point, he says, I don't belong here. And Christ's response, he identifies him as Christ, is, no, you do belong here. You could interpret that as saying, no, you deserve to belong here. Or you could say, no, I created you for this. You belong here. It's my intention that you come. And I think that's okay to interpret it that way. I think you might find, if you could interview the guy yourself, he might interpret it that way, because what Christ ended up saying at the end was, you're not ready yet for this. So it's this idea of, you belong here. It's my desire that you belong here, but you're not ready yet. Like, go back and live your life, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that this is real, right? And live worthy of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That, to me, that is similar to Christ being here on earth, when he did come and he encountered, and he was walking with the sinners, and he was encountering a lot of people who were like, I'm not worthy. I don't belong here in your presence. And he would basically tell them, the same thing, the idea of, you are mine, and go and sin no more. It's like, you're forgiven, go and sin no more, type thing. So even when he was here, he was saving people who didn't deserve to be saved.
Yeah. I guess I want to say, for sure, the movie, just to kind of put at ease anybody who is concerned about it, I don't think the movie was clear either way. I don't think that it clearly suggested that there's salvation apart from Christ. Like, there's no, someone who's not a follower of Christ goes to heaven. There's nothing like that in the movie. I mean, you could twist it. You could, out of your concern, you could think that's what's being said. But I would just say, be really careful as you listen to it. At the same time, there are some loose ends that I think that are said. It's like, okay, I mean, that could go either way.
Right.
I kind of want to pick the producer's brain here. But the vast majority of people that are involved are believers, it seems.
Okay. Yeah. So you would recommend the movie too?
I would. I kind of want to talk about it more once, like in a month, when
Yeah.
people have had a chance to.
Right. When we can do
like
spoilers.
holding my tongue, here. Yeah.
So would you say that was because we both took our sons? You
Mhm.
took your two sons. I took one of my 4.
Mhm.
Would you say that there'd be something that fathers should take their
I think so.
older sons to?
Yeah. I mean, older sons, I would say kids see a lot of stuff today. Your kid, but at least I would say 12 or 13 years old should be able to see this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's too heavy for that. I mean, my kids watch, Lord of the Rings and whatever. Like, there's nothing that's much darker than that. Would you say?
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, I definitely do. And I think the reason, and I was just going to ask this as well, like, how does this apply to dads? This is a dad podcast, right? Not an NDE podcast. But how does it apply to dads? My boys did really benefit from it because it is a spiritual issue. And I think for them, it kind of brought into focus the reality of judgment, the reality. And again, it kind of captured that wonder and the mystery, but it brought into focus not only the reality of judgment, but because judgment is real, the reality of what they should be focusing on and how they should be living now. Specifically what was said was, I want it motivated me to love more. To be undistracted. Like it reminded me, and it's kind of beside the point whether or not these NDEs actually happened because it's scriptural. It reminded me that love is the umbrella commandment that Christ gives us. I'm to love him with my everything, and I'm to love others as I love myself. Like that captures what it looks like to follow Christ, and it captures what judgment will be about in the end. And so in that sense, the movie was a really great reminder for them to kind of like bring them back on focus. And I was really glad to hear that from my kids.
Yeah.
This is certainly this is a movie that will never leave your mind. I think for the rest of my life, I'm going to think about these experiences. It'll just be a piece of the puzzle that helps keep me focused, and on track.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah. So it was a good opportunity to take your kids to something and have a great discussion. I mean, I had a great discussion with Kyle afterwards, and I think that's needed. A father-child time that's not just surfacey, but you can start talking about deeper things.
Yeah,
and
it's a great starter.
And you just have something that you see together, and it's able to kind of just dive into a little bit. So, yeah. Anything else that you want to pop off on this? So, hopefully you guys will maybe get the opportunity before it's out of theaters. We actually got free tickets, and it's through Angel Studios, and they give you free tickets. So if you desire to go for free, I'll put the link to one of those in our descriptions. So with that, we'll just sign off of this episode. Always remember that real dads lead.